What I think is happening right now, and I think this is such an important moment, is we're now plugging in really powerful AI tools into the workflows that we do. So I think that we're going to be able to do content which is almost cinematic, almost Hollywood-esque in terms of its creativity, which is something we were never able to do before. I think there's a number of things that they could learn. I think one of the things that we developed pretty quickly was bringing together true expertise at the center of government, and putting them all in one place. We built a resilience hub, so we had expertise from behavioral science, from like PR, press office, content creation, marketing. And because we were in a crisis scenario, it was really important to get those people centrally together, working as one team. And that enabled us to be able to produce some of our best content, particularly at the start of the pandemic. I think that was really, really valuable for us. And it's that ability to speak directly to people quickly, everybody share an understanding and then get that message out. I think another area that's really important is, particularly in the communication space, is that most people aren't consuming media in the way that they would have traditionally done. So a lot of it's through social media. They're getting they're being influenced by influencers. Some communities, we just don't interact with mainstream media at all. So we had to have a much more holistic response to that. And it meant that thinking about the audience front and center, how would they interpret the information and how would they then use that to do a behavior? And that was hugely important. So having really clear ideas as senior leaders about the communication, having the right skill set, ultimately will drive the best results. I think the most important thing is to have absolute clarity on what you're trying to get across in your message. So many times, not just in government, but prior to government, when I've worked for the likes of the BBC, Channel 4, the best campaigns are the ones that have a real clear purpose. And then you find a creative way of storytelling. So ultimately, you have to start with the audience. Who are you aiming it at? What do you want them to do? How do you want them to feel? And if you can start with that point and then build out, well, like, what are the channels you then have to reach them on? What are the expertise you need in-house or through an agency? You go from there. But ultimately, it's down to absolute clarity of message and that kind of authentic, relatable content that you produce. And when we've done that successfully, that's when we've had the most success. Yeah, I talk about there being three phases of communication. We started off in a kind of an analog world, and that was like in my role as a press officer, communicator, I had to convince the mainstream media through the journalists to take my story and then present that in a favorable way to the general public. Then we introduced a social world, which was social media came into play. And that meant that it was a kind of two-way conversation, much more conversational. You could go direct to your audience, or you could go through the mainstream media. What I think is happening right now, and I think this is such an important moment, is we're now plugging in really powerful AI tools into the workflows that we do. So I think that we're going to be able to do content which is almost cinematic, almost Hollywood-esque in terms of its creativity. Which is something we were never able to do before. So I think storytelling is going to become much more rich, much more visual, and I think that's going to evolve how we communicate. The speed at which we communicate is also going to be hugely valuable. But equally, as businesses, we have to worry then about the flip side of that is that bad actors can also use these types of technologies in negative ways. But I think we're at the start of something really profound with the introduction of AI into our workflows. So a big focus for me is how communications is changing. And for me, the big takeaway at the moment, I know it's a buzzword, but I actually think this is so important, which is AI. What is AI doing to work? The business, the Future Communicator that I run, We're working with the likes of the British Chamber of Commerce. We're speaking to London Business School, FTSE 100 companies, and so forth. And what we're really trying to explain to them is that this is not just a small shift. This is a huge change in how work will be done in the future. So it's the ability to firstly understand that AI is here, that it can make huge improvements creatively to your work, and it has huge opportunities. And what I try and do in my talks is explain what's actually happening, what they need to learn, how they can implement it, and then how they can have success using AI and other communications tools, which will then help the brand, the reputation, and ultimately the success of the business.